Where are we right now with the good guys, bad guys? Who's in the lead?
I believe the battle has already been won behind the scenes. It's just, what are we allowed to see right now? They're trying to trickle out the information that because it's so horrifying what these bad guys were doing to us. And if you dump it all on humanity at one time, you're going to shake up the psyche of the fabric of the society. So they're trying to slowly roll it out. So the FISA memo they're saying that, well, that's 1/10 of the information. Well, why not just give us all the information and tell us what really happened? Because they know what really happened. It is not a secret within the battles between the good guys and bad guys. They just need to roll it out so that we can slowly digest it. And they still treat us like babies. So, but definitely the good guys have won already, and it's just mopping up the external stuff so that we know ultimately, come a couple years from now, we're going to know everything that happened. And it's not good. It is about as dark as you can imagine. So, it's moving from the dark shadows.
So you think they know pretty much everything? I mean, right now they have full control within government. I mean, they have access to all the NSA data. They have all the records. So they pretty much know everything at this point, like you said.
Yes. And everybody needs to remember the NSA has every single electronic and video and audio tape. You name it, they have it. They have text. They probably have recorded conversations that didn't even know the people talking didn't even know that were recorded. And there is nothing that goes on that the NSA doesn't store in their vaults. So if you're looking for Hillary's emails, they're at the NSA. If you're looking for, what the Justice Department was doing to make sure that Trump didn't get in office and then tried to overthrow him, all you got to do is go to the NSA, say, okay, we're the good guys. We're here to take all your information. If you do not provide that information, we will go to war with you as well. And they kind of have, but then the NSA is full kimono now to the good guys. And it's shocking the things that were going on.
So you think they're not releasing, like they're just not dumping all the information because you think the people first, maybe they won't believe all of it and it's just too much for the American person because
it's too much. It's too much for the world. I mean, how bad it was, it will literally shock people, from the financial stuff to the spying on U.S. citizens, to the pedophilia, to the child sacrifice, you name it, it was going on in the United States. And these bad guys literally almost overthrew the United States. But we are literally, right now, the good guys have control of everything. And the bad guys are good. They'll probably try to do another false flag soon. Although their ability to have the people believe it is kind of fading, because a couple of days later, all the alt media is saying, oh my God, look at all these things that don't match up about the Vegas shooting or 9/11 or Sandy Hook, or you name it. There's so many people out there that have eyes on the ground and are dissecting what goes on with these false flags. No longer can they go in front of the media and say, this is how it is, and believe us, because nobody believes them anymore.
What do you think the stock market crash was about? Do you think that was a message? I mean, some people are saying, oh, look, the market came down by 666 points. That was a message to the Trump administration, to those individuals, that we still can control the economy. Or do you think this is something completely different?
It's something completely different. It was probably... Remember, the Fed and the Treasury have had control of every market since the invention of computer programs back in the 60s. Full control, as in 100% control. So it was timed. Steve Mnuchin, the head of the Treasury, was the computer expert and ran the IT department at Goldman Sachs. He was in charge of computer rigging. That's why he was put at the head of the Treasury. So he's the guy, probably on some orchestrated event. It's all orchestrated. So they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Probably November, December, they said, okay, we're going to run the stock market up, continue running it up, and then we're going to have a sharp pullback, and we'll make it end at losing 666 points in one day, have everybody say conspiracy, conspiracy, think the bad guys are in charge, and then we're going to run it up again. In the meantime, we're going to run up Bitcoin and the cryptos to 20,000 Bitcoin in December, and then we're going to slam it down. It's all orchestrated from behind the scenes. The basement of the U.S. Treasury has a computer trading floor. They don't even need a floor. All you need is a laptop and a mouse and the ability to rig any market. They get that ability from the Exchange Stabilization Fund. So, yeah, it is all coordinated and the miraculous save of the stock market. The idea is to continue to let the economy appear to grow the stock market, but at the same time build this crypto economy right next to it, so we can make the transition much easier before the old system dies away. So it's going by plan. Anybody who says, "Oh, the bad guys can control the stock market," they used to have control of the mouse. They do not anymore. It is the good guys they can take down the system at any point by setting off a derivative bomb, but they don't want to do that because too many people will die and all the wealth will be destroyed. They want the fiat system to go away, but they want something else to be in its place so that we have a smooth transition.
Yeah, I want to talk about the transition in a little bit, but I just want to ask you this question. Steve Mnuchin, is he good guy, bad guy?
He is obviously a market rigger. He's not working for the bad guys. He is under the control of the good guys. And he could be a good guy and he could be a bad guy. I don't know. But the people who control our government, the deeper deep state, there's a bad part of the deep state and there's a good part of the deep state. The good part is taking out these bad guys. So you got guys out there who are saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, Steve Mnuchin. And he does it, with his computer programming expertise. And that's what happens. So the battles are still going on. There's a lot of visible people that still need to be taken down, such as the people at a lot of the congressmen are already announcing their retirements. If you look at the amount of retirements, it's just stunning how many congressmen are retiring, because they've been given a choice. You either retire or we're going to take you down. And some of the people will be taken down, like the Clintons and the Podestas and the Bushes and the George Soroses of the world. Those people are next in line during this year, and during next year will be the trials, and everybody will learn everything as they unfold this process. So
you think that there will be trials? You don't think these people will run? I mean, Christopher Steele, I think he went dark.
Yeah, he didn't show up for a court appearance. Yeah,
right. Do you think these people are really going to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to stand trial, or do you think they're going to, run or
they'll try to run, but there's nowhere to go. If you listen to the QAnon, that deep state good guys supposedly, he's right when he says we know all, we see all. They can track anybody anywhere, and there is no running away from this. Anybody who tries to run is going to be caught and thrown in Guantanamo, most likely. So we'll see what happens going forward. I think the U.S. a good sign will be the further degradation and exposure of what was really going on with the deep state to try to overthrow a sitting president. That's conspiracy to commit treason. And if it's not treason, then it's at least sedition, which is also punishable under the treason laws. The worst punishment is by death. And conspiracy to commit treason is even worse. So these guys like Comey and all these guys at the FBI and the State Department that are being talked about now in the mainstream media, the reason they're freaking out is they know their punishment is death. If you get caught trying to overthrow a sitting president, your punishment is death. So it's going to be really interesting to see people like that go to trial, get proven guilty, and then be put to death.
Now, the bad guys, they still have control over the corporate media. I mean,
I wouldn't say control. If you watch Fox, they're saying a lot of things that they wouldn't have been allowed to say before. About
Fox is one of the news stations that have kind of broken free of the CNN, MSNBC, and the rest, but the others still carry that same type of message. They have
absolutely, but it's all part of it. And if you have been listening to what was in the latest post, the dossier was shopped around and colluded with some of these major media firms like CNN and MSNBC and things like that. That's going to come and bite them because they're going to be implicated in the conspiracy as well.
So I wanted to talk about the transition. You mentioned the transition, and we have a new Fed boss, Jerome Powell. And it seems like the corporate media, they don't like him. It looks like Wall Street, they don't like him that much. Like he's no friend of the stock market. He talked about the stock market. He thinks it's in a bubble. Why is he in the Fed right now? What's his job?
Well, his history and his expertise is in bank workouts And he's been in charge of basically dissolving insolvent banks. That's where we're getting to. So they're not putting a pro-growth guy. They're putting in a guy that can help kind of cover over the implosion of some very large banks. That's his expertise. That's what he's done his whole life in his positions. I don't like. He worked for the Carlyle Group, which is one of the worst criminal organizations out there. So it doesn't. The Fed is going to have less and less power as the cryptos continue to grow and be seen as some positive light. And then you're going to see some large banks start to collapse this year and next year. And his job is to wind them down or disguise the true nature of the pain, so that the old system can keep going for a little while longer.
While he's now in the Fed position, we have Rand Paul again, and he's pushing, I guess it's the same bill, or reintroducing the same bill to audit the Fed. And I think Trump is behind this, actually. Do you think this year or maybe next year they'll actually audit the Fed?
Well, they already know what the Fed has done. It's not to the guys way up there, Rand Paul, and Ron Paul knew what the Fed was doing. They all know what is being done. The question is, do they want to tell the public? Do they want to take down the Fed? I do think that Fed will be enveloped into the U.S. Treasury because there's some things that the Fed does that are good. But as this system changes, as the old system dies and the new system grows and moves forward, which is a crypto system, I think, the Fed will go away and all the evil things that have been done and the mismanagement and the concept of money in general, electronic money that they can print with no limit out of thin air based on the whim of a human being. We tell people around the world that we have 20 trillion in debt, but we can create money out of thin air. We don't have to tell anybody about it ever. We can create $1 trillion, pay off the debt and not tell anybody. We can create $100 trillion and not tell anybody. And that's the whole concept of money that, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers didn't want people to understand. It is literally when you untether the US dollar from any kind of backing, there's nothing that stops them from creating as much of it as possible and not telling anybody. That's why the crypto system is so good. It's all visible. You can see every Bitcoin that's ever been created, and you can see every transaction that's ever been done on it. And that is key. And the supply is limited to 21 million coins. So within that ecosystem, it is much better than what the U.S. Treasury or Fed does, which is can create money out of thin air, can spend money out of thin air, and not tell the public, not tell anybody, especially other central banks. And we can keep up the illusion of faith and confidence in the U.S. dollar.
So you think as we go through this transition, we're going to be heading into a crypto system, moving away from the fiat dollar? There
is absolutely no question in my mind, especially with the testimony in the Senate of the head of the CFTC, the guy Chris Giancarlo, the other day, and that's exactly what he said. He said, we have to embrace the cryptos. We have to put good measured rules and regulations around it to protect people in this crypto sphere because it is changing the world. It is going to completely reinvent the economic system. And we either get on board or we'll be left behind. And the United States has decided to get on board. It was a great meeting. And if you listen, when he starts off his conversation about this is a Senate meeting on, I think it was the banking, housing, and urban affairs. He starts off his testimony by talking about his daughter who's into Bitcoin and really understands it. And he's talking about the double spend problem and everything. This is amazing stuff coming from a government that everybody else in the world, besides the Road to Ruta followers, were saying, "Oh, they're going to kill us. They're going to tax us to death. They'll stop the cryptocurrencies because it challenges the power of the U.S. dollar." No, they're embracing it absolutely. And keep your eye on this guy, Chris Giancarlo, because he is one of the good guys fighting the bad guys. So yeah, it's really exciting time for cryptocurrency investors and people who are building businesses on blockchain technology. huge amount of money and infrastructure and build outs going on. And last year it happened a lot until this year the products are coming out. It's great stuff.
It's not, it's not the governments that I'm actually worried about. It's more the central bank. Like the Biz came out with an announcement that, they're very worried about cryptocurrencies. Banks have been shutting down the credit cards where they won't allow you to purchase the cryptocurrencies anymore. Other people are saying that they're trying to deposit money into the banks and they're not allowing that either. I'm really more worried about the central bank and the banks. I like cryptos. I think it's a fantastic system. I really like it. I think it's good for the people. I think it's good for the world to get away from the central banking system. And then, of course, we don't need the banks. We don't need the central bank. But the central banks, that's where really worried. This is where I could see them trying to push something to try to take control or try to limit what is about to happen.
And that would be the bad guys' plan. But like I said, the good guys are taking over. So the BIS is going to be completely obsolete within 5 years. Same with the IMF. Same with most likely the Fed will be sucked into the Treasury, and they'll remember the old system is dying. The old system is massively corrupt, massively overextended, massively full of derivatives, and it's dying away. They won't be the voice of reason, the voice of confidence in what we use as money going forward. They will be the people. As these banks start to fail and as people lose money in the old system, they're going to look at these people as these horrific human beings, especially if all the stuff comes out about what they've been doing behind the scenes with the money. The biggest drug money launderers and things like that are these banks. And once people understand that, and, WikiLeaks can come out today with all this information on what the BIS and the IMF have been doing behind the scenes, and those people will go away. Those are human beings behind these old stodgy institutions that used to rule over us and not going to rule over us in the future. So I am not afraid at all of what the BIS says or the IMF says. And it was clear to me in the Senate hearing that the good guys within the United States are going to embrace the cryptocurrencies because they understand the whole reason that these bad guys were allowed to run the banking system is because they have put us into a position that if we end the old system, people would die, everything would be destroyed in the U.S., you'd have no food, no water, no power, because everybody needs that almighty dollar. They got us into that position, and we've been held hostage for over 100 years. The cryptos represent a solution to that problem that could never be fixed with gold and silver, because gold and silver, nobody has any anymore. And the people who have it aren't going to give it up. So you can't use gold and silver as money anymore. It's impossible. The bankers have most of that money. So we invented a way around the old system to get the criminality out. And once we have this new system in place fully, the crypto system, then you're going to see the old system die off faster and faster, and everybody's going to rush into the new crypto system. And we saw it starting last year. Most cryptos were up over 1,000% last year. They'll be up over 1,000% this year and next year. So as this system builds out, we're going to see the death of the old system, and we're not going to listen to people from the IMF and the BIS. People aren't listening to them now. The old stodgy bankers listen to them because that's all they know. And that's why, when banks shut off credit cards for buying cryptos, I agree with them. They should, because, the credit card is a debt, and you're giving people money that they're going to default on if the cryptos go down 90%, which they do, every few years. Every year you're going to see a huge drop in the cryptos. It's just the nature of what it is. And yeah, they don't want credit cards because they're on the hook for those. Debit cards, they're very much embracing it. JP Morgan Chase, who says, Jamie Dimon says, I hate the cryptos. It's an idiot Ponzi scheme, but they're one of the biggest players in the crypto system. And if you look at any exchange that you can link a bank account to, the number one bank they use is JP Morgan Chase.
So do you think going forward, do you think these banks will even exist? Would we even need them going through the transition into a new system?
The ones that embrace the cryptos will have a lot better chance of surviving than the ones that don't. And they know, and they'll know it more and more as we go forward. They're starting to know it now. There's a lot of banks that are getting into cryptocurrencies. There's a transition company called Salt Lending that is kind of a little of both. It uses crypto collateral, cryptocurrencies as collateral, and they hook up with banks to give loans, but U.S. dollar loans based on using crypto as collateral and no credit rating. You don't have to go through the criminal credit rating agencies you don't have to buy into the system anymore. And you don't have to sell your crypto and pay taxes. You can take a loan out on them. So all of these things are going to happen as we move forward. As the old system dies, the new system will be supported by the good people, the good guys in the U.S. government that are taking out the bad guys.
So why don't they just switch us over right now? What are they waiting for?
Well, there's no infrastructure. If you crash the old system now, literally, we wouldn't be talking on this webcast. You wouldn't have power, you wouldn't have water, you wouldn't have food, and that was always the problem. The problem, why did they bail out the banks over and over again, is because the ramifications of the banks crashing, we saw this in 2008, were so drastic that's why Congress bailed out the banks, because everybody would have lost everything in the blink of an eye, because the banks are fractional reserve banks. Our stock market is a fractional reserve stock market. Everything is required such that the blood, the money that runs through the veins of the economy must keep flowing or everything dies. So the infrastructure for the cryptocurrency economy is just being built. Literally, the decision was probably made 2 years ago that we got to get these things going because we need a solution to this old system. Gold and silver are not the solution, unfortunately. And I had for a long time wished they were, but the concept of everybody giving their gold and silver to the government so that they could reallocate money to the rest of the population didn't make sense. And without reallocation of wealth to the population, you're not going to have an accepted currency. It's the way it is. It's the fact. And back when other currencies failed before 1971, everybody had some gold and silver. So it wasn't that hard to go back onto a gold and silver standard. But since 71, walk down the street and ask how many people have silver coins or gold bars in their safe at home or in their ETF or anything like that. Very few, very few. So you can't really go back to a system like that unless the people who have it all are willing to give it up to everybody else. And then you have to convince everybody that it's a better system than these math verified crypto systems that are open ledger and open for the entire public to see. That's the kind of thing that will be accepted by humanity.
Now, what about those people that, let's say they have no cryptos, they just have dollars, and maybe they do have gold and silver in a safe, and we transition into a crypto system? Will they be able to take that gold and silver? Will that be, reevaluated to a different price at that time? And can they go ahead and purchase cryptos?
I think definitely the transition is going on now. I mean, you just explained about everything I did for the past 3 or 4 years. I've sold a lot of my gold and silver for cryptos. Now, silver is a different thing because we're going to need it in the high-tech future we're moving into. And there's a lot of silver and gold will never be valued appropriately as long as the derivative markets are open, which is the COMEX and the LBMA. So as long as those are still open, the suppression of gold and silver will continue. But the cryptos there's a lot of people working on crypto solutions to the gold and silver manipulation. Those solutions are peer-to-peer transactions between a buyer of silver and someone who wants to sell it, instead of going through these criminal organizations like the COMEX and the LBMA and having bankers suck out the life of everything. So the cryptos will end up saving gold and silver. But gold and silver will be useful silver will be obviously useful as a industrial commodity in the future. In a high-tech world, you need a lot of silver, and we just don't have it anymore. Gold is a different deal. It'll fade over time as the old bankers die off. There will be people who always believe in the old system, but the old system is dying fast, and part of that old system was the belief and faith in gold as money. And yeah, there will be people who love it, and there will be people who say, I don't need it. I've got my entire life savings on this Trezor or Keep Key electronic wallet, and I don't need to carry around, a wheelbarrow full of heavy gold. And and especially with the millennials. If you talk to millennials these days, they don't give a crap about gold and silver. They love the cryptos because they see it as an open source technology, and they laugh at the people who believed in that old system with the old stodgy bankers, abused them forever. So really exciting times we're moving into.
So as we go through this transition, like you said, they're building the infrastructure. When do you think that will be finished? Like, when do you think this transition will actually happen?
Well, it's never finished. I mean, we're continually transitioning, the Industrial Revolution into, into computers, into the internet of the 1990s. A lot of people are starting to equate the internet in the early 1990s when people didn't know what the world was. And there were people jumping up and down saying, this is going to change the world. This is going to change the world. Nobody believed them. We're in that space with the blockchain technology right now. So in 20 years, you're going to laugh at the things that were being said about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And you're gonna say, oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't see how this was going to change the world. It sucks all those bankster criminal costs out of the transaction, so we can do peer-to-peer transactions. And it is going to revolutionize economics, obviously, but the way we are governed, even there's blockchain technology solutions to voting fraud, and it is being applied literally right now. There are companies being built that it's going to be applied to every single industry in the entire world. And that's how important it is, and how important it is to kick out these old criminals who had their old ways, and their old ways were absolutely corrupt, and they wanted to keep it that way for the last 100 years because they benefited off it so much, and they sucked all the wealth out of humanity. And now humanity's found a way to fight back, and a lot of great people are working on this. And the U.S. will absolutely clear, the beginning explosion for clearing the road happened in the meeting a couple days ago in the Senate where the CFTC head, this guy Chris Giancarlo, said, we are going to just clear this runway for the cryptos and we're going to protect people who get into it. And we're going to write laws that stick people in jail for doing anything bad to this system that we think can save us from the criminal cabal and the old ways.
Now, what happens to the older population? I mean, most people, this is just a joke to everyone. Those people are still on AOL dial-up, and they have their pensions, they have their dollars. They really don't know about cryptocurrency, and they're afraid of the internet. But we have a huge population of the older generation who have a lot of money in dollars. What happened? Like, how is this going to work with them?
I do think there will be a crypto conversion within the U.S. dollar. I mean, the U.S. dollar is defined as an ounce of silver, or so many grains of silver. It's not defined as a Federal Reserve note, which is an IOU. So there will be a come to Jesus moment for the U.S. to convert some, not all, of the U.S. Money supply to a crypto base, either a sovereign token or potentially the Satoshi Nakamoto Bitcoin, which is over 1 million Bitcoin are held by Satoshi Nakamoto. A lot of people believe, including myself, that the U.S. government was involved in the creation of Bitcoin, and I think Alan Greenspan was knee deep in it. But I think those coins are saved for the U.S. population. And then every country can create their own cryptocurrency, reallocate money according to how they decide. But remember, with the U.S. dollar, most of the U.S. dollars are held by really dark people and hidden away in, hidden places in the Caribbean and Panama Papers and all that. So you can't go one for one. Nobody's going to. The biggest problem is allocation. And Alan Greenspan wrote that in his first book. The biggest problem of a central banker is deciding how to allocate wealth to a population. And his take is nobody should be able to do that, but we are approaching a time when that absolutely has to be done. Greenspan's solution was to hand out the currency according to Social Security balances. So the people who have paid the most in, when the old system dies, and like you said, nobody has any money to live, hopefully the U.S. government, I do believe they do have a plan to reallocate a cryptocurrency to people, or allocate a cryptocurrency to people before the U.S. dollar, dies completely, And I do think it will be handed out according to, you'll have a base level that everybody gets a, 10,000 US dollar crypto bucks or whatever they name it. And then you have a equal distribution depending on how much you've paid into Social Security, how much you have in your pension, things like that. But the money hiding in the little cubby holes in Panama and all that will be chucked out. So that's the way that the Road to Ruta comic books from the Fed that I discovered, in 2007, that's the way they dealt with the problem. They did it by age and how much people have already bought into the system.
So those people who, have, investments and stuff, they're going to kind of lose out a little bit. Their wealth will probably decline just a little bit during this transition phase.
You got to be a smart investor and invest in things that, are.
I'm just saying those people that still have dollars. I mean, I have, whatever it is, 20,000 in the bank, and then I have my pension and I have a couple of stocks. And that.
Well, it depends on what society wants to do. It's, people who invest in the old system as it's dying and haven't recognized that it's dying might lose. But I would suspect that society would stand up and say, no, we can't have everything go down. That's why the old Social Security system plan was actually a pretty good plan, because it rewards those who bought into the system long as the people who have the most in Social Security means they worked. They got the most over time because they worked hard during their whole life and paid their taxes and things like that. But investments in third party type of things, having a bank hold your money, all that, it's investing should be done on an individual level. And if the system implodes or changes and you didn't see that, everybody's got to take care of their own financial wealth. They can't look at a lot will look to the government and say, oh my God, we've lost everything in the stock market. Now you have to pay us back. Life's not really like that and doesn't, smile favorably upon people who buy into systems that are not sustainable.
So moving forward, do you think the Trump administration and what they're doing now, they're just going to keep blowing the stock market higher and higher, and they're going to keep chugging along until a certain point? Until
the crypto economy is fully engaged. So yeah, I do think I wouldn't say blow it up. I think they'll control it. Like this little drop back of 1,000 points, it was a controlled drop back, and now they're going to run it up again and again. They can. It's one of those things. If government can control the economy, can put a happy face on the economy, they will, and they have. Absolutely, and they can do it because they control it with computers and derivatives based out of the basement of the U.S. Treasury. They can click a mouse, and the Fed New York, and it's been proven many times that there is a guiding hand for all this stuff. It can take it up, take it down, can take it sideways. I believe the good guys are in charge of that process now. So I fully expect 100,000 Dow, but that if that happens by next year, I would expect $2 to $3 million Bitcoin.
Okay, now I wanted to just go back 1 second to the good guys, bad guys, and you mentioned a false flag where they might have the ability to push another false flag, and I know QAnon also mentioned a major false flag, and he did that all in caps. Do you think this might be their last and final attempt to try to distract from everything or bring us to war or anything like that? Is that what they're going to end up doing?
I don't think there's going to be a final attempt. I think there'll always be people fighting the powers that be. There will always be a battle between the good guys and bad guys within government. I think if there is another false flag, there's been so many of them. Major false flag along the lines of 9/11 type false flag. I think the public will see through it. The good guys would expose it right away and say, these are the people that did this. It's not the story you hear on CNN. These are the people that caused this tragedy to happen, and you need to string them up. But that stuff is being exposed now, and that's the big worry I have about the slow exposure of the criminality is it gives these bad guys time to do other things. I think they should open the kimono much faster and show what was going on with the Trump situation, with our FBI, with the NSA, with the Federal Reserve. and then get to a lot still has to come out about the pedophilia. It's obviously started with Weinstein and all that, and it is going to be more and more. The Podesta brothers are going to be in the spotlight real soon because they have all the emails. Uma Abedin's laptop that Anthony Weiner had 650,000 documents, including videotape, audio tape, every email that's been missing from Hillary, and they're bad. I mean, they were like horrific things. So I think the longer they hold back, the more likely it is they're going to do a false flag, and I don't think it'll work. The idea of a false flag is to change the way things are done going forward. Like the Patriot Act was already in place when 9/11 happened. There was 6,000 pages just ready to be signed, and they needed a reason. So they're going to try to do that, but I don't think people will fall for it this time.
Bix, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
I have a YouTube channel, Road to Ruta, or go to roadtoruta.com and sign up for free emails.
Bix, once again, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.